I would like to introduce State Auditor Julie Braha, who would like to say a few words.
All right, good morning. I am so happy that you all are able to be here. I'm your state auditor, Julie Blaha. I think I've met some of you, and I know a lot of you, since you are new trustees, we may not have had a chance to talk yet, but I am so excited for the chance to meet you all in person. My job today to start off is to, one, thank you, of course, thank my team, and talk a little bit about what the State Auditor's Office does. So, just to be careful, you know that I am the politician here, so don't worry, it's only going to be 2 or 3 minutes. With that, the OSA, our office, we protect local solutions that make our communities work. I think at the heart of that's what we do. And so that's one reason you're here. Fire relief associations are a terrific local solution. The way we do it, way we do that work, and if we could advance the, I don't think, there, thank you. Specifically, we oversee over $40 billion in local government spending. Now, we do that in 3 main ways. We have examinations like audits or investigations or legal compliance. We provide support, like training like this. We provide a number of tools, types of software, and we'll provide one-on-one support for you as well. And then finally, because we're working with so much data, we collect data, we put it to reports and give it back to you with the context and analysis that you need to make decisions based on facts. That's our work in a nutshell. Now, specifically, when it comes to working with fire relief associations, we work to protect pensions. Pensions, one of our favorite local solutions. And we do it by overseeing public pension plans. And specifically, when it comes to fire relief associations, we review annual report. We work to resolve compliance issues. We certify associations to be eligible for fire state aid. And then we do things like we are today, providing education materials, resources, and training for relief associations. Now, one way we get at how we can do this support is we want to talk with you directly, not just in training, but also bring you in to help us work through policy issues. We have a Fire Relief Association working group that meets annually, and it has been since, I believe, the Padawana-Anderson administration. We go through and try to build a set of policy updates that will help things work well. This year, we're also going to be looking at fire state aid. So we will be bringing a group together to look at fire state aid and decide if there are some reforms that we could do to make it more effective and more equitable. Now, at the end, we'll talk a bit about how you can follow our newsletters, and then you'll be able to know when those meetings are happening, and you can even watch them live. They're public meetings, so we encourage your participation. And we know that you're the kind of people that get things done. You're the people that have stepped up to support your relief association and take on this new role, and we thank you for it. I'm very glad that I can put you in the competent hands of our pension division, headed up by Rose, and you'll see Maya and Molly and Mark. Oh gosh, I just had a moment where I had a moment. You'll see him on there. Let me make sure I've got this correct.
Mike is here with us too.
Mike, thank you. Oh my gosh, Mike. He was great, and you will deeply appreciate him by the end. This is, I would argue, one of the best groups of public servants you'll find anywhere in the state, and they're happy to work with you directly and help you be successful. So with that, welcome to the training. Thank you for everything you're doing to support the people that are keeping our community safe. And with that, I will turn it over to Maya, Molly, Mike, or Rose. Have a great training.
Thank you, Julie. My name is Molly Rush, and I'm a pension analyst in the OSA's pension division. Rose Hennessy Allen, Mike Johnson, and Maya Dobney Miller are here with me and will be available to answer your questions. Today's training is designed to provide an overview of fire relief associations and is focused more towards new trustees. In today's training, we'll be covering the fundamentals of a relief association, including what a relief association is and the composition of the Relief Association's Board of Trustees. We will then discuss the reporting requirements with our office, as well as other state and federal agencies. The third topic will focus on the financial side of a relief association and cover the revenues and expenses. We will then provide information as to where resources can be found on our website, as well as a background on the state auditor's form entry system, or SAFES for short. All right, so now let's launch into our first section on the fundamentals of a relief association. So a relief association is a governmental entity that receives and manages public money to provide retirement benefits for, you guys providing firefighting and emergency first response. The relief association is a separate governmental entity from the city or town and from the city or town's fire department. So it's governed by state statute, local bylaws, and your articles of incorporation. It is also incorporated with the Secretary of State's office as a nonprofit corporation. And you have various reporting requirements with our office, as well as other state and federal agencies. And we will go into more depth on those reporting requirements later on in this training. So relief associations are broken down into 4 plan types. The first one is a defined contribution plan. And so that plan, when it comes time to retire, you know what the funding level or what the funding amounts are going to be, but you don't know what the balance is. And a defined contribution plan is also called a split the pie plan. And so when a member gets paid out, they're going to get paid out their balance at retirement. And the members do receive equal shares of state aid, municipal contributions, and prorated shares of investment earnings. So then there's defined benefit plans, and defined benefit plans have a predetermined benefit based on a formula. And the unknown variable is the amount of funding needed to support those benefits. And so those are primarily funded through state aid, municipal contributions, and investment earnings. And so when one of those funding sources drops, the others kind of need to increase in order to make sure everything's sufficiently funded. And so defined benefit plans are characterized into 2 groups, lump sum plans and then monthly plans. And of course, there's also combination plans. So a lump sum plan, a defined benefit lump sum plan is the most common plan type. In fact, it's about 80% of all of our relief associations are lump sum plans. And they pay a one-time lump sum benefit when the member retires. Theirs is normally years of service, times the benefit level, times the vesting percentage. And these plans also tend to have lower associated administrative costs and tend to be easier to administer. The monthly and monthly lump sum combination plans are the least common plan type. At the end of 2020, only 20 relief associations paid monthly benefits to retirees. And of these 20, 19 provide a choice at retirement for the members of receiving a monthly benefit or a lump sum benefit. And these are based on the members, or a monthly benefit is based on the member's years of service and the monthly benefit amount, and are paid for the time the member retires until the member's death. Monthly plans are the least common, mostly due to their complexity and higher administrative costs. In fact, the majority of those 19 relief associations that give their members a choice of receiving a monthly or a lump sum benefit have discontinued the monthly benefit option for members as of a certain date.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Johnson. I'm also a pension analyst with the State Auditor's Office. And we're going to first start talking about the Board of Trustees for relief associations. Every relief association has a Board of Trustees, and Board of Trustees, their components are outlined in state statute. And all Board of Trustees consists of 9 members. 6 of these trustees will be elected from the relief association's membership, and 3 of the trustees will come from the municipality or municipalities that the relief association or fire department serves. So the 6 members that are elected from the relief association's membership, 4 of these members would be considered officers of the relief association. They would consist of the president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. And these officers would be in the bylaws of the relief association as to the duties that each officer would perform for the relief association. The municipal trustees for a relief association are going to be associated with the municipality, and the first member from the city would be the fire chief. There would also be 1 elected municipal official and 1 elected or appointed municipal official, and these would oftentimes be referred to as ex officio members. A municipal trustee has all the rights and duties of any other trustee, except for the right to be an officer of the Relief Association Board of Trustees. So the Board of Trustees should be outlined in the Relief Association's bylaws. The officers should have their duties for the particular Relief Association outlined in the bylaws. And if you ever have any questions as far as compliance with state statute, as far as your Board of Trustees goes, please feel free to contact us. So touching on what the Board of Trustees would do, they have fiduciary responsibilities or duties. And so all 9 trustees in a Relief Association's Board of Trustees are considered fiduciaries. And as a fiduciary, each trustee on a Relief Association's board owes a duty to the members that investments are made in accordance with state law and with the plan documents. And some of these documents that I'm referring to would include the investment policy for the Relief Association, and then also the applicable state statutes that need to be followed in terms of investments or how state taxpayer funds are administered from the plan. So to touch on the investment policy for a second, Relief Associations are required to have a investment policy with our office or submitted to our office. And the investment policy would include things like the types of assets that a particular Relief Association would want to invest in, percentages of asset classes that the Relief would feel comfortable investing in. And we recommend that the Relief Association, in their fiduciary capacity, talk with their investment advisors, any brokerage firms that they deal with, to make sure that they are following the investment policy, that the investment policy looks sound and would be reliable. Also, the Relief Association, in their fiduciary capacity, would need to talk with any investment advisors regarding the state statutes that govern what investments and the thresholds of certain investment classes that the Relief Association can be invested in. So that is one important aspect of the Board of Trustees' fiduciary duties. In addition to having a fiduciary duty to the Relief Association members, trustees also owe a fiduciary duty to the taxpayers who help finance the plan, and also to the state of Minnesota. So state aid funds, supplemental state aid funds, municipal contributions are all taxpayer funds. And there are certain limitations and requirements that Relief Associations need to follow as far as how to spend taxpayer funds. So one of the fiduciary responsibilities of the board is also to ensure that taxpayer funds are being spent in compliance with state statute. So far, we've touched on the requirement that a Relief Association have a Board of Trustees, and that the Board of Trustees has fiduciary responsibilities to the membership and then also the taxpayers of the state of Minnesota. Another aspect that is really important to the foundation of a Relief Association and to make sure that its finances are in order would be internal controls. So internal controls are procedures that are designed to protect a Relief Association from loss or misuse of its assets. And these can take various forms. And we encourage that Relief Associations frequently work with their CPA to go over the internal controls for their Relief Association and get input from their CPAs as far as what adequate internal controls are already in place, and also areas that could be looked at by the Relief Association to ensure stricter, better internal controls that can help prevent against these loss or misuse of assets. So the internal control policy should be adequate to ensure that, and many of these that I'm going to talk about next are often outlined in the bylaws of the Relief Association, oftentimes in the officers section of the bylaws that dictate what each specific officer of the board is responsible for. And the first would be that all transactions are properly authorized, and the Relief Association should have a process in place where any transaction or expenses are viewed by the membership or the Board of Trustees, and that there is a proper process to go through to make sure that they are authorized under state statute and that there are more than one set of eyes looking at each expense. Another aspect would be incompatible duties are segregated for the Relief Association, meaning that there's not just one person doing various jobs or overseeing various processes for the Relief Association, but there's more than one person, so that the duties for the Relief Association, the processes that are being enacted are segregated, so not just one person is overseeing all the financial decisions of a Relief Association. Another aspect that we find quite important are that the bank statements are reviewed monthly. And the reason we say that is because in the past we have had instances where either misuse of funds or issues with the bank were found out, and the Relief Association did not review their statements on a monthly basis. And this led to the Relief Association not receiving any funds back from the bank because the bank was not notified in a timely manner. There was either a error in the statements or that a misuse of assets was reported. So it's very important that on a monthly basis, Relief Associations are reconciling their bank statements with the transactions that they have in a particular month. Any unusual activity is promptly reported, and usually if you see any type of unusual activity, we would ask that you contact our office so that we can take a look at the unusual activity with you and try to determine the best course of action. Finally, electronic disbursement support procedures. And this is essentially that another process where any type of electronic disbursements, which are very common nowadays with the technology that's available, that there is a process for the Relief Association to review these electronic disbursements, that there's more than one set of eyes taking a look at them, and that the disbursements are being reviewed and approved on a regular basis by the Board of Trustees. So section 2, we're going to be taking a look at reporting information. The reporting information includes things that are required to our office, such as the fire forms, schedule forms, things of that nature that are required on an annual basis, also along with any audits or agreed upon procedures reports that Relief Associations must submit to our office on an annual basis. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is the reporting forms due dates. So every year we have an annual reporting cycle with our office, and we have two specific dates that are important to all Relief Associations, and that is when are their forms and or audits and agreed upon procedures reports due to us. So the first deadline is March 31st. And reporting information will be due to us for all plans that have assets less than $500,000 and liabilities less than $500,000. So this would include all required reporting forms be submitted to our office by that date, along with the agreed upon procedures report that would be required for plans having both less than $500,000 in assets and liabilities. The second important due date would be the June 30th due date. And the due date would be for all reporting information, again, the various reporting forms that we require, along with an audit for those Relief Associations making over $500,000 in assets and liabilities. So every year, once we receive the reporting forms from Relief Associations, once we've received all of them to satisfy that requirement, we go through the process of reviewing all of those forms. After we're done reviewing those forms, we reach out to the Relief Association that we finished reviewing to follow up any additional questions or any additional information that we may need. Once all those questions and additional information have been received, we then go on to certify a Relief Association for state aid. So state aid can be delayed if the forms are not submitted by the deadline. And this is because of a couple different things. We review forms on a first come, first served basis. So the earlier you get your forms in, we'll be reviewing those first, and there is more likelihood that we'll get through the review process and do any additional follow-up that we need to get the Relief Association approved or certified for state aid. Another aspect that may delay state aid is if we need additional information or any type of other documentation. If we have not received that by the state aid deadlines, that may also delay state aid being received by the Relief Association. Probably one of the most important dates that we need to remember would be November 30th. And so if a Relief Association does not get all of their required forms into our office, audit or agreed upon procedures, depending on the size of your plan, by November 30th, state aid would be forfeited for that year. So the next area of topic would be state aid certification deadlines. So we touched on the fact that once we receive all of the Relief Association's required reporting forms, we have the ability to review those forms and had any follow-up of additional questions or documentation that's needed to be satisfied. Once we get to that point, to be certified as eligible, the state aid, or for any round of state aid payments, again, all the required forms would be submitted to our office. At that point, we would then certify you for state aid, which would result in a list being sent over the Department of Revenue, where the state aid list would be posted on our website and also on the website of the Department of Revenue. So there are 4 primary dates set in statute for state aid certification deadlines. The first would be September 15th, and that's our first certification deadline for the fire state aid and supplemental state aid. And to meet that deadline, again, we would need all required forms to be submitted, to have all forms be reviewed, and then any additional information to be submitted to our office. Once that took place, then we would certify the Relief Association before the September 15th deadline for state aid. The list would then be sent over the Department of Revenue on September 15th. And usually, as a rule of thumb, state aid checks would be sent out 2 weeks after the state aid deadline. So for September 15th, for relief associations that are certified for state aid on September 15th, generally these state aid checks, supplemental state aid check, would be sent out to the municipality around October 1st. And generally, these would come in the form of electronic disbursement from the Department of Finance. And generally, there'll be 2 line items on those electronic disbursements. One would be for fire state aid, and then the second line item would be for the supplemental state aid. So if there's ever a question where you don't feel that the fire state aid is matching the fire state aid that's being reported on our website or the Department of Revenue's website, please take a look to make sure that you've looked at both line items on your electronic transfer from the state. The next, or the second certification deadline would be November 1st. And again, all the required needs before that date to be certified for state aid. Again, we would send the certified listing over to the Department of Revenue, and around November 15th, state aid checks would be sent out to the municipalities to be dispersed to the relief associations. The third is March 1st, again, as same as the other certification deadlines. To meet that, everything would need to be submitted by March 1st. Electronic transfers of state aid would be sent out around March 15th. And then the fourth certification deadline would be June 1st. Now, if we have not received all the additional information or resolved all the questions that we had regarding a Relief Association's form by that date, then the Relief Association would forfeit their state aid for the year.
All right, thank you, Mike, for going over the state aid certification deadlines. So now that you know when the deadlines are, it's important to know what you need to file for those deadlines. So there are a few forms you file with our office. All relief associations file the Financial and Investment Reporting Entry Form, or FIRE for short. The FIRE form includes basic plan information, investments, net assets, tells us if you paid any pensions during the year, as well as like the cash flows in, cash flows out. So when did you get your state aid? When did you pay those pensions? Our defined contribution plans file a defined contribution allocation table with our office. That can be either submitted with the FIRE form or as a separate document. And that form has like their table on it, shows us how things like state aid and investment income or loss is allocated to Relief Association members, and has their individual member ending balances on it as well. The monthly benefit payments section of the FIRE form is something our monthly and monthly lump sum combination plans complete. And it's a very similar concept to the pension payments tab of the FIRE form, except it's for their monthly benefit payments. And then all of our lump sum plans file a schedule form with our office. And I should clarify, it's our defined benefit lump sum plans that do not pay monthly benefits. And that form calculates member liabilities, if there's a surplus or deficit for the year, if there's a required contribution for the upcoming year, and the highest possible benefit level your Relief Association can establish under state law. That form needs to be completed at the 12/31 benefit level and should be certified to the municipality on or before August 1st. And the reason for the August 1st is it allows the municipality time to budget for any potential required contribution for the upcoming year while they're planning for their next year's budget. And then every Relief Association will submit an agreed upon procedures report or audit. Now, whether you can file an agreed upon procedures report or an audit is dependent upon your size. If your assets and liabilities are both under that $500,000 threshold and have not exceeded the threshold in the prior year, you can file an agreed upon procedures report. If you have exceeded the $500,000 threshold in assets or liabilities, or have went over in the prior year, you must file an audit. So now you know about the reporting forms you file with our office. Let's discuss some of the other required documents that need to be submitted. Now, there is a fantastic resource on our website called the Key Reporting Requirements Calendar. I will be the first to admit, it's probably one of my favorite things on our website. And that includes links to all the forms, due dates, and it kind of tells you who to submit everything to as well. So that's also a great resource. And later on in our presentation, we'll tell you where to find that. So the first form needs to be submitted to our office as a broker certification form. And that form is completed annually, and one is filled out for each broker the Relief Association works with. So if you work with multiple brokerage or investment advising firms, you would complete a broker certification form for each firm you work with. If you work with the State Board of Investment and don't have an additional broker or investment advisor outside of them, you do not need to complete the form. And again, that form is required to be completed annually. If your Relief Association amends, updates, or rewrites your bylaws during the year, we would like a copy of those as well. And that also goes for if you just do a bylaw amendment, we want a copy of that too. And the bylaws should also be amended each time the Relief Association changes its benefit level. Speaking of benefit level changes, if you change your benefit level, we want to know about it. So we're looking for Relief Association's amended bylaws, or if you have meeting minutes, we will take those. We do, however, prefer amended bylaws. And then we do want to see a municipal ratification of that benefit increase. And that'd be like meeting minutes or a resolution. Either one's fine with us. And you would, again, only need to submit this if your benefit level changes. And as a reminder, the benefit level change is initiated by the Relief Association. And we do have a statement of position on our website that outlines the process for changing a benefit level. And we can tell you where to find those just a little bit later in the presentation as well. If your Relief Association amends or updates its investment policy, we want a copy of your new policy as well. And as a reminder, that policy provides guidelines regarding the investment of Relief Association assets and usually includes target asset allocations. And so all of our monthly and monthly lump sum combination plans have an actuarial valuation requirement with our office. Now, this is different than the GASB 6768 actuarial valuation because the underlying assumptions are based on statutory requirements. And so again, that form is, or the actuarial valuation, I should say, is required to be completed. every 2 years unless the benefit provisions change. So if you completed actuarial evaluation last year, but you increased your benefit level this year up a couple $100, then you would need to have a new actuarial evaluations. And actuarial evaluations can be paid from the Relief Association Special Fund if you want to too. Also, if you're unsure if you need to submit a reporting form or document to our office, please contact us here in the Pension Division and we can definitely provide some clarification on that. So now we've discussed some of the required documents to be submitted to our office. Let's launch our next poll on benefit level increase documentation. Okay, so the answer to the poll of what should be submitted when you change your benefit level is Relief Association meeting minutes, amended bylaws specifying the effective date, and municipal ratification. So that'd be lots of like city council meeting minutes, town board meeting minutes. If you have an independent fire department, be independent fire department meeting minutes, or a resolution from any one of those three as applicable. So now we discussed on what needs to be submitted to our office. Let's go into some of the required documents that need to be submitted to other state agencies. I admit this is a longer list, so bear with me. So the first one is the Fire Equipment Certification Form, FA1 form, and also the Certification of Surface Areas Protected. And that form is due to the Minnesota Department of Revenue by March 15th each year. Submission of that form is required for you to receive your state aid. And so that form and certification were sent by mail to the city or municipal clerk or the secretary of the Independent Nonprofit Firefighting Corporation in early January. It must be signed by your fire chief, as well as the municipal clerk or secretary of the Independent Nonprofit Firefighting Corporation as applicable. 5% of your city's or community's fire state aid is forfeit for each week or part of a week that the form is submitted past the March 15th due date. So we highly recommend that you submit this form on or before March 15th. Additional information about this reporting requirement and a list of fire departments for which the forms have been submitted and received are provided on the Department of Revenue's website at the page you see on the screen. So another form that's submitted to the Department of Revenue is the Supplemental Benefit Reimbursement Form. And that form is filed with their office if you pay a service pension during the year. So what a supplemental benefit is, it's an additional amount that's paid with each service pension. I should say each lump sum service pension, disability benefit, or survivor benefit. And that amount is calculated for lump sum for service pensions and disability benefits as 10% of the lump sum distribution up to $1,000. For survivor benefits, the amount is basically doubled, 20% up to $2,000. And in 2019, the law was changed, so all survivor benefits are eligible for a supplemental benefit as long as the member passed after January 1, 2019. And supplemental benefits should be calculated on the pre-tax pension or benefit amount before any deferred interest is added. And so you're not going to earn any deferred interest on that supplemental benefit as well. And the supplemental benefits are paid to members who are fully vested, as well as those who are partially vested. Now, the form to seek reimbursement of any supplemental benefits paid becomes available mid-November every year and is due by February 15th. Reimbursements are paid out then on or about March 15th. And if you miss the filing deadline, you cannot submit the form request again until the filing period begins the following November. Relief associations are given 5 years to file for reimbursement of the supplemental benefits paid. So if you miss a year, have no fear, you can apply for it the next year. And the online form does require that Relief Association provide its Minnesota Tax ID number. There's a phone number on the Department of Revenue's website that you see on your screen that you can call to get your Minnesota Tax ID number. So another form that's filed is the Statement of Economic Interest form. And so that form is complete each year by each Relief Association board member and the Chief Administrative Officer. So that does mean all 9 members of your board of trustees have to complete the form. The statement is also then filed with the Chief Administrative Officer of your Relief Association, and is made available for public inspection. The Chief Administrative Officer of your Relief Association must also submit a certified listing of individuals who filed a Statement of Economic Interest form to the Campaign Finance and Public Disclosure Board by January 15th. This form must list everyone who's filed the Statement of Economic Interest form with your Relief Association in the prior 12 months, along with the address where you can view these forms. The next form is the Investment Business Recipient and Disclosure Form. That form is annually required to be submitted to the Legislative Commission of Pensions and Retirement by March 31st. The form requires the Chief Administrative Officer of your Relief Association to list all the recipients of investment business with respect to investments made by the association. And then there's an annual corporate charter renewal with the Secretary of State's office, and that registers your Relief Association as a nonprofit corporation with the Secretary of State's office. If that form is not timely filed, you may lose your nonprofit status. You can learn of your status by going to the Secretary of State's website. Relief associations with the renewal due date displayed as 12/31/2021 must complete the registration before December 31st or face possible dissolution of their nonprofit corporation status. If you have completed the registration already for the year, the renewal due date will be displayed as 12/31/2022. So now that we've listened to me talk about all these forms, let's launch our next poll on supplemental benefit reimbursements. All right, so the answer to the poll on when you can apply for supplemental benefit reimbursements is mid-November through February 15th each year. All right, so now we'll just move on to discussing the financial side of a Relief Association, the different accounts and funds you have. So Relief Association trustees are responsible for their own financial accounts. The accounts are held separately from your affiliated municipality and are not city or town funds. Every Relief Association is required to establish and maintain a special fund. The special fund is a restricted pension fund and functions as a trust fund to be used primarily to pay pension benefits. Special fund assets may only be dispersed for purposes expressly authorized under Minnesota law. In addition to a special fund, every Relief Association may also establish and maintain a general fund. This fund is an unrestricted pension fund. And then I want to mention that the Relief Association is not required to have a general fund, but can be helpful in managing non-pension money. The general fund may be funded from member dues and revenues raised by the community. Donations to the Relief Association that are not specifically designated for the special fund should be deposited into a general fund. So a Relief Association with a permit to conduct charitable gambling in Minnesota may also have a charitable gambling fund. How gambling funds may be spent is strictly controlled under state law. For example, it is prohibited for a governmental entity to use any gambling funds it receives for pension benefits. So if your Relief Association has a gambling fund and has questions on it, we would recommend that you contact the Minnesota Gambling Control Board, as they definitely have a lot of information on it and are very knowledgeable. As we mentioned, every Relief Association is required to establish and maintain a special fund. The Relief Association's fire state aid, supplemental state aid, and any supplemental benefit reimbursements are required by state law to be deposited in your Relief Association special fund. All required and voluntary municipal contributions are also required under state law to be deposited in the Relief Association special fund. Any investment income, such as like interest, dividends, appreciation, or depreciation on a special fund assets must also be deposited in your special fund. The special fund may also receive donations of money that is specifically designated for the special fund. As we mentioned, the special fund is a restricted pension fund, and assets may only be dispersed for purposes expressly authorized under state law. The special fund is mainly used to be paid benefits like service pension, disability benefits, and survivor benefits. You also pay for certain fees and other expenses that are specifically authorized in state law. And so some of those would be like investment management fees to your broker. And then there is administrative expenses as well. Those need to be necessary, reasonable, and direct expenses of administering the special fund. And only the administrative expenses authorized in state law can be paid from the special fund. So some examples of that would be professional fees, like paying your accountant for your audit, actuarial evaluations, if you have like filing application fees, officer salaries, and itemized expenses incurred as a result of fulfilling their responsibilities as administrators of the special fund. So basic office expenses like postage, and then if you any fines such as those imposed by the Gambling Control Board in the Internal Revenue Service are not authorized special fund expenditures. Again, I want to reiterate, those are not special fund authorized expenses. So if you're unsure if an expense is authorized for your special fund to pay, the Relief Association could contact our office prior to paying the amount, and we could definitely tell you if that is authorized. So now we reviewed special fund expenses. Let's launch our next poll on authorized special fund expenses. All right, so the answer to the poll of what are authorized special fund expenses are benefit payments and investment management fees.
So as Molly touched on earlier, general funds are funds that Relief Associations have. They don't have to have them as well. It's up to an individual relief association whether or not they want general. If a relief association chooses a general fund, should be aligned in the bylaws for relief association. And for a general fund, revenues and any expenses that are paid from a general fund are outlined in state statute and then also the bylaws of a relief association. First, we'll take a look at the revenues that can go into a general fund. To start with, member dues. Dues that are paid by each individual firefighter to the relief association, generally on an annual basis. If a relief association intends to collect member dues, that should be outlined in the bylaws of the relief association. And it should be determined in the bylaws what fund the member dues will go into. Relief associations have the option to either place member dues into the special fund of the relief or into the general fund of the relief association. But whichever fund they go into, that should be dictated in the bylaws. Other revenues that we often see going into general fund would be for fundraising revenues. And these are the various fundraising activities that relief associations do oftentimes on an annual basis. And so if there's ever any question if a fundraising activity may be considered a charitable gambling activity as well, we would encourage you to contact the Minnesota Gaming Control Board to discuss that before you go ahead with any type of fundraiser that may be construed as a charitable gambling issue. But generally, fundraising revenues are allowed to go into the general fund of a relief association if it's provided for in the bylaws. Also, any donations that are intended for the general fund can also be deposited into the general fund of a relief association. A couple notes on the fundraising revenues and then also the donations for a relief association. Those should be specifically directed to be deposited into the general fund. So any checks that a relief association receives regarding fundraising activities or donations from the public, it should be stated on the check that they're intended for the general fund of a relief association. Donations can take various forms, whether or not they come from an individual or from local businesses. Both can be placed in the general fund if provided for in the bylaws, and if those donations are specifically intended to go to the general fund of the relief association. Next, we'll take a look at general fund expenditures. So disbursements from the general fund can be made for any purpose authorized by the relief association's bylaws, unless it's prohibited by other applicable law. Some of the expenditures that we see paid for by relief associations from their general fund would be fundraising expenses. The various things that a relief association needs to put on a certain fundraising activity. Those things can be food, entertainment, what have you. Again, these expenses for the intents and purposes of fundraising expenses should be outlined in the bylaws of the Relief Association. We oftentimes see member recognition meetings, times when somebody may be retiring, something to that effect, where the membership gets together, has a meeting or a dinner of some sort, refreshments, things of that nature, and those can be paid for by the general fund as well. Another aspect that we oftentimes see, especially when we're reviewing reporting forms, is the purchase of equipment by a relief association. And this is an area that we see some issues with each reporting year. So if a relief association wants to use general fund money to purchase equipment for the fire department or to add on to equipment or whatever else the fire department may need, the equipment should not be purchased directly by the relief association. The relief association should go through the process of donating funds to the city for particular pieces of equipment that the government may need. And the city will then have to go to the city council, or the city council will have to meet in order to determine if they want to the donation from a relief association. And the reason that we ask that this process complete is because the city has other things that they need to take into account when accepting donations to purchase equipment. These things include increased insurance costs, liability costs, and other liability issues associated with equipment. And so instead of directly buying equipment and then trying to donate to the city, we ask the city be notified of equipment purchased, so whether or not they want to accept a donation of cash as the city in order to purchase the equipment going forward. So to touch on that again, the donation to cities or towns and fire departments can be made from general fund. We ask that donations go through the city council process before bringing any equipment to the department. We ask that relief association not to buy specific pieces of equipment and then donate to the city. Other aspect that we see general resources spent on are things such as member clothing, refreshment for fire calls, that nature. All would be satisfactory if they're in the bylaws of the relief association. Another aspect that we see in the reporting cycle that we sometimes have issues with would be the special fund deposit errors. And so funds that have been deposited into the special fund in error, we ask that you contact our office before transferring any funds or trying to determine if it's in fact an error. Our office can help you guide through the process of remedying any error that may have occurred. So funds cannot be transferred from the special fund unless and until written authority is granted from the Office of the State Auditor. Funds erroneously deposited in the special fund cannot be taken out of the special fund unless specific written authorization is granted from the OSA. Our office does have the authority, after a relief association has presented evidence that the deposit error occurred in good faith, to order the transfer from the special fund to the appropriate fund or account an amount equal to the funds deposited in error. So if your relief association determines that they have deposited funds into the special fund, such as depositing fundraising revenues into the special fund that they wanted placed into the general fund. Once that's become known that there was the error, we ask that you contact our office and we'll take you through the process of determining if the error did in fact occur and the process to go through to remedy the situation. And that generally includes a affidavit process where the individual that deposited the funds would sign an affidavit stating that it was a good faith error and there was no ill intent. And then after that After that is received by our office, we would review that and then sign off on the Relief Association making the transfer from the special fund to the correct account in the amount of the deposit error. And so anytime you have any questions about this, and even before any deposit errors are made, if you just have questions where funds should be deposited in general, please give our office a call if you aren't sure on where to put those funds, and we can get that taken care of before an error actually occurs.
We understand that special fund deposit errors do occur, and so we will launch our next poll concerning what should be done first if a relief association identifies a special fund deposit error. Okay, so what should be done first when a relief association identifies a special fund deposit error has occurred? Please first contact us here at the OSA for further instruction on the next course of action.
Next, I'll go over some of the differences between a fire department account and a relief association account. So fire departments and relief associations are two separate governmental entities. The fire department is a city or town fire department, meaning that it's part of the city or town, and it is not a separate governmental entity, and therefore a fire department cannot be in control of its own checking account. The city council must control the city's finances, or the town board must control the town's finances. In the past, we've seen fire departments that have their own checking account write checks for various basic necessities that the fire department needs. And under statute, the fire department has no authority to control its own checking account. All these accounts must be liquidated, and you can contact our office if any fire department out there is currently using a checking account. As I said earlier, all fire departments are part of the city, so the city must control all finances related to the fire department, go through the proper city council process, approving any expenditures that are needed by the fire department. So the Relief Association is a separate entity from the fire department. A Relief Association maintains their own checking and savings accounts, investment accounts, and these are separate from the city or town accounts. The finances of a relief association are governed by the Relief Association's Articles of Incorporation and bylaws, and by statutes that are different from those that govern a city or town. So as the fire department's finances are controlled by the city, the Relief Association controls its own finances. And much like a city council process that takes place to determine fire department expenditures, the Relief Association's Board of Trustees will also make determinations on its expenses that are paid for by Relief Association. So our final section is website resources. As you well know, many of you use our website for various questions that you have. One note is that we have revised or updated our website. It looks somewhat different than it used to. So if you have any issues navigating our new layout of the website, please feel free to contact our office. So I'm going to go briefly through some of the resources that are available on the OSA website. And the first would be the SAFES link, where you can see it's highlighted in green right now. SAFES is the portal that you'll get into, being able to find your annual reporting forms, being able to upload and download them, sign forms, and update contact information, amongst other things. And Molly will touch on more of the specifics on that in a minute. The next green highlighted area is the forms deadline, or the forms and deadline section. You will find numerous pension forms in that section that pertain to relief associations. Next would be the training and guidance section. There you'll find pension documents, pension articles, pension topics, statements of position, pension legislative updates. The pension legislative updates will give you a review of the annual legislative changes that were enacted if the pension bill goes through. So every year you can check in there to see any changes that might apply to your relief association. after they've gone through the legislative process. These statements of position are really useful for specific items that relief associations have questions on regarding various topics. It'll take a topic at a time and give a summary of that topic and what applies to relief associations and what relief associations really need to know. The last item would be under our news section, which is our monthly pension newsletter. Many of you subscribe to that already. You can go in there to get the most recent newsletters plus the archive of previous newsletters. They give updates on things that pertain to relief associations right around the month that they're put out. So things like due dates for forms, frequently asked questions, things like that will be contained in the newsletters.
All right, so I'm going to briefly touch on SAFES here a little bit more detail. I realize we're coming up towards the end here at 3:30, so again, we'll try to be brief here. So SAFES is the secure website where you can upload forms, submit forms, access forms, and electronically sign your reporting forms. As Mike mentioned, it's on right up there on the home screen for easy access. You may also wish to bookmark the SAFES login page for future use. So if you've never logged into SAFES before, or it's been a while and you forgot your password, you can click on the forgot password link where it's highlighted on your screen there, and you'll have to enter your SAFES username or your email address, and what we'll do is send you a link in your emails where you click on it and it will reset your password. And now if you don't know your SAFES username, please contact our office and we can provide you with your username. So after you log into SAFES, the first page you're going to be on is the contact details screen. You're going to need to verify your contact information, providing any updates as necessary, and the system will make you verify your contact information at least once a year. And you do have to verify your contact information before going to some of the other tabs, especially the Forms tab within SAFES. So when it comes time to submit your forms, you're going to go to the Submit Documents tab. Then you're going to browse for the form you are looking for, and then you'll be able to upload the form. The fire form and the schedule form need to be uploaded as Excel files. A separate DC table, an audit, and the agreed upon procedures report are uploaded as PDFs. Everything else will need to be sent by email, fax, or mail to our office. We do hope to have a future update where you can submit additional documents through SAFES. And then when you are uploading those forms in SAFES, for the DC table, audit, and agreed upon procedures report, you'll have to enter a couple more things in, like telling us which document it is, as well as which reporting year, so we know which form you're uploading. After you submit the form, it's very helpful to view what you submit, make sure you submit the right thing. So then you're going to want to click on the Forms tab in SAFES, and then click on the reporting year. To view the form, there's a View Form link on the screen next to the form name. You'll click on that, and it will open a PDF version of the form. Now, for my city officials and all my municipal officials, I should say, you have an additional step before you log in, or be able to download forms, I should say. So when you click on the Forms tab, you're going to click on the pension plan in the row right between the year and the reports, because your forms default to your city or town reporting forms. And then you'll be able to click on the reporting year and then the View Form link. So after you view the form you submitted and comes time to sign the reporting form, there's just a couple more things you would have to do. So again, you first want to view the form because it's very important to know what you are signing. So after you view the form by clicking on that View Form link, you're going to click on the Sign button next to your name, and that will electronically sign the form with a 32-character unique identifier, and that does represent your electronic signature. Now, we know not everybody is as computer or technology savvy as others. So if your relief association has some people sign electronically, some people sign a paper copy, that is fine with us. You can all sign electronically, all sign paper copies, that again is fine. All right, so thank you for attending today's new trustees training. If you have additional questions, please contact us at the contact information on your screen. The contact information for each pension division staff member is also provided on our website under the Contact Us heading in the About drop-down menu. Thank you and have a great day.